Okay, so this video will actually give you an idea of the characteristics that go along with the racial traits or population trait handout that you'll be given. You see here African, European, and Asian skulls. I go through these back and forth, so I'll be moving the skulls around. Some of these I've taken the jaws off of. I'll put them back on if we need them. And remember what I said about this, because our species is so flexible. In reality, these are not ideal in the sense that they have all of the traits and/or that they have only all of the traits for each population. There is some admixture between. So I'm going to start with the African skull. And again, as I turn it this way, you can see that the top of the skull is long and narrow, longer and narrow, say for example, than the European and or the Asian, which I won't put up here right now. Also, if you look at the profile in anatomical position, you can see now here we have a little problem because the nasal bones, again, admixture. The nasal bones are more European in feature. So is the aperture down here. Instead of a gutter effect or a nice sliding sort of effect here, you can see the nasal spine and there's actually a sill. So some European traits in here. Otherwise, the shape of the face should be a little more concave. You can see that the maxilla is, and the lower jaw to some extent, is jutting outward. For the nasal shape, again, this is not our best example here. Again, this is a more European sort of shape to the nose. The nose, the aperture should be a little wider here, and these should be flatter as well. Again, these are more ancient traits for African populations, and they deal with, as you've learned in your lecture in the book, they deal with the environmental differences. In hotter climates, you're going to need a wider aperture in order to cool down the hot air coming in. Zygomatics, while I have it here, if you look, you'll see that the zygomatic, that the malars are close to the face. And I will move the African out for a second and move the Asian in. The Asian here, the cheekbones, the zygoma are a little further out, a little wider, and in some case higher. For the teeth, more for safety's sake here, if you look here at the back of the incisors, this is the biting edge of the incisors. If you look here, you'll note that they are bean-shaped or spatulate. Bringing the Asian if you look here at the four front teeth, at the incisors, you'll see what appears to be a kind of a scooped out shape. It's not really a scooping, as it is a buttressing of the outer edges of the incisors themselves. So you can see that it's indented in that sense. Shovel shape, because apparently to the people who first defined this, they look like the biting edge of a shovel. So, real quick with the European, just a sort of show. As we look here, you can see that this is more of a blockish shape to the skull. If we put it into anatomical position, you can see that the profile is more or less straight. A little bit of prognosticism here, but much less than in African populations. There is a very clear nasal spine here, as well as a sill coming across, and the aperture is narrow. Again, zygoma narrow, and the teeth themselves are spatulate. For the Asian, as we look at the top of the skull, not quite as rounded as we would hope for this. There's a little bit of parietal bossing coming in here, so probably some admixture. They're actually fairly close to a round shape where there's no admixture. The profile here, put the mandible down there. The profile here in anatomical position is kind of intermediate. As far as that goes, there's a little more prognathism here than there is normally, but you can see that the profile comes down somewhat straighter. Everything in here, of course, again, intermediate as far as the nasal shape, as far as the nasal aperture. For the cheekbones, once again, the zygomatic, wide and flaring, and as I showed before, but I'll put back up, if you look at the incisors, you're going to see shovel shaping. You're going to see that indent in that lingual or tongue side, the interior.